The sun was setting in a small village in Nigeria, creating an orange hue on the thatched roofs and dusty paths. Obinna, a tall, handsome Igbo man of 28, had his wedding preparations in full swing and the air was buzzing with excitement. The entire village came together to commemorate his marriage to Adiz, a 24-year-old Igbo woman who is well known for her radiant smile and gentle nature. The richness of their culture was reflected in her beautifully embroidered traditional Igbo dress and her hair adorned with coral beads. The village square was adorned with colorful fabrics and flowers, and the aroma of freshly cooked jollof rice and grilled meat could be detected in the air. Drummers sounded rhythmic patterns that echoed through the village, attracting everyone towards the celebration. The couple celebrated their beginning of a new life on a perfect evening marked by joy and unity. A cheerful face stood out from the rest with its stern expression. Nkechi, Obinna's sister-in-law, who is strikingly beautiful and in her early 30s, observed the festivities with a disdainful expression. Adiz was seen by her with a mixture of envy and bitterness in her eyes. Nkechi, who had been widowed 2 years ago, felt a pang of resentment when she saw the happiness that seemed to elude her own life. During the ceremony, the couple was blessed by elders and young girls sang songs about love and prosperity. Adiz and Obinna exchanged their vows in the presence of their ancestors, who were represented by carved wooden statues placed around the ceremony area. The night became darker, and the celebration became more intense, with dancing and laughter filling the air. Nkechi quietly left the crowd during the celebrations and headed towards the outskirts of the village, where the night was quieter and the air was cooler. Standing by the river, the moonlight cast a silver glow on the water. Her heart was weighed down by unresolved grief and jealousy. Adiz's loneliness was unbearable when she thought about enjoying a happy marriage. The couple shared their first dance as husband and wife at the village square, with their friends and family cheering them on. Adiz gazed up at Obinna with love and admiration as Obinna's strong arms wrapped around her. It was a depiction of perfect harmony, a moment they would cherish forever. As the night progressed and the celebration reached its peak, a subtle tension began to emerge among the happiness. Nkechi's absence was noticed by some, but they ignored it because they thought she needed a moment alone. They were unaware that her heart was preparing for a storm that would soon disrupt the calmness of their lives. Obinna and Adiz were left to enjoy their first night together as husband and wife as the wedding celebrations came to an end. They went back to their newly constructed abode, which was adorned with woven mats and handcrafted wooden furniture. The doorway's fresh flower adornments filled the air with the scent of fresh flowers, which symbolized the blossoming of their new life. Nkechi went back to her modest and small home, where the walls seemed to close in on her and intensify her loneliness. After marrying at a young age, she lost her husband, Chike, to a tragic accident. Since then, she has lived a life of solitude. Her dreams of a happy family life have shattered. Obinna and Adiz's happiness had only fanned her resentment, as her bitterness had been simmering. Restlessly, she paced inside her hut. Her thoughts were loud and the silence was deafening. Why should they be so happy while I suffer alone? She thought, her heart pounding with a mix of sorrow and anger. Although she knew she should be happy for her brother-in-law, the darkness in her heart kept her from feeling any joy. The next morning, the village awoke to a bright and sunny day. Adiz and Obinna, glowing with the afterglow of their wedding night, stepped out of their hut to welcome their new life together. Their neighbors greeted them with warm smiles and congratulations. Adiz's joy was infectious, and she enthusiastically accepted her new role as a wife. Nkechi, on the other hand, observed from a distance while her heart was hurting. Despite her desire to be a part of their happiness, her unresolved pain prevented her from doing so. Her own family made her feel like an outsider, and the loneliness was unbearable. Her mind began to wander to more negative thoughts, pondering ways to ease her pain by disrupting their happiness. Nkechi's bitterness grew as days became weeks. Her distance increased, preventing her from attending family gatherings and village events. People began to notice her absence and change in demeanor. Rumors began to circulate about her mental health, but no one was willing to confront her directly. Adi's kind heart allowed her to sense the turmoil of Nkechi and make the decision to reach out. One afternoon, she came to Nkechi's home and brought a basket of fresh fruits and a warm smile. "Sister, I've missed you. Adis kindly requested that you join us for dinner tonight, hoping to bridge the gap." Despite trying to smile, Nkechi's emotions were violently churning inside. "Thank you, Adis. I'll make an effort to come," she said, her voice hollow. Adis left with the hope of making a breakthrough, but Nkechi's heart was still not softening. That evening, Nkechi showed up for dinner. Although everyone tried to act normal, the underlying strain was palpable and the atmosphere was tense. Adis and Obinna made an effort to engage Nkechi in conversation, but she responded with curt and distant responses. The meal came to a close with an uncomfortable silence in the air. After everyone had left, Adis opened up to Obinna about her concerns. "I'm really concerned about Nkechi. She seemed so unhappy," Adis said, her eyes filled with concern. Obinna let out a sigh. "I acknowledge, but she's been through a lot. Our focus should be on being patient and supportive. It's possible that patience and support won't be enough." Nkechi's pain was escalating, and she was about to make a decision that would change the lives of all of them forever. Nkechi's internal turmoil was far from resolved. Her retreat into herself continued for the next few days. She spent a lot of time by the river, where the serene sound of the water flowing contrasted sharply with the storm that was brewing within her. The village seemed to move on without her, with Obinna and Adi's new life becoming the center of attention. As the sun disappeared below the horizon and cast long shadows over the village one evening, Nkechi found herself drawn to the river once more. The sunset's fiery colors were captured by the calm water, but her heart was anything but calm. She had made a decision. She could no longer stand to see Obinna and Adi's happiness. She would find a method to bring them down and make them experience the same agony she experienced. She ventured deeper into the forest that night under the cover of darkness to find an old woman who was known for her knowledge of dark magic. Mama Ife was both feared and respected by everyone. Nkechi heard stories about her powers and came to believe that her revenge could only be achieved through such means. The ancient trees, with their twisted branches, created a canopy that blocked out the moonlight, allowing Mama Ife's hut to be hidden. Nkechi's anger hardened her resolve as she approached, despite feeling a sense of foreboding. She struck the wooden door, which creaked open to reveal Mama Ife, an elderly woman with piercing eyes that seemed to glimpse into Nkechi's innermost being. Mama Ife whispered a raspy whisper in her voice, indicating that she had been waiting for you. "Your heart is weighed down by anger and sorrow. I would appreciate it if you could tell me what you are seeking." Nkechi breathed deeply and stepped into the dimly lit hut. She expressed her desire to bring misery to Adis and Obinna, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and determination. "I desire for them to feel the agony that I endure on a daily basis." Mama Ife took her time studying Nkechi before slowly nodding. "It's important to be careful what you wish for, child." Nkechi was determined to go down the dangerous path, even though her pain made it impossible for her to see any warnings. While in the village, Adis and Obinna were oblivious to the dark plans being made against them. Their life progressed together, with Adis becoming a beloved figure in the community for her kindness and generosity. She often helped the elderly and the needy, her radiant smile being a beacon of light for many. Adis bartered for fresh produce at the village market one afternoon. People were drawn to her because of her beauty and warmth, and she quickly became friends with the vendors. While walking back home, she observed Nkechi watching her from a distance. Adis attempted to bridge the gap between them by waving, but Nkechi's face remained expressionless. Mama Ife performed a ritual at her hut that night, asking ancient spirits to fulfill Nkechi's wish. As Mama Ife chanted incantations inside the hut, Nkechi felt a strong energy and watched with awe and fear. A mist that was dark and swirling started to form in front of them. Mama Ife handed Nkechi a small vial filled with a dark, ominous liquid, and told her to take it. Make sure to use it wisely because there's no going back once it's unleashed. Nkechi firmly grasped the vial, her heart pounding. Despite knowing that her power could alter everything, her desire for revenge was stronger than any doubts she might have had. She expressed gratitude to Mama Ife and left the hut, clutching the vial in her hand, ready to begin her plan. Nkechi returned to the village with the vial, her heart filled with a mixture of excitement and dread. She was aware that she had crossed a line, but there was no going back. While the village slept under the stars that night, she stayed awake and plotted her next move. Bright and sunny arose the morning after, a stark contrast to the darkness in Nkechi's heart. Addis and Obinna went about their daily routines without being aware of the danger that was nearby. Addis, always the diligent and caring wife, made her husband a hearty breakfast consisting of yam porridge. Their love was evident in every glance as they ate together, laughing and sharing stories. Addis went to the village healer later that day to obtain some herbs for a new recipe she wanted to try. Nkechi perceived this as a chance. She stealthily followed Addis to the healer's hut, hiding in the shadows. Once Addis left with her herbs, Nkechi approached the healer with a fake story about needing a special tonic for a lingering illness. Without any suspicion, the wise old healer handed her a potion. After returning home, Nkechi carefully added the contents of the vial to the tonic. She was certain that this would be the perfect method to introduce the curse without raising suspicion. She had plans to give the tonic to Addis, pretending to care about her well-being. Nkechi went to Obinna and Addis' house that evening wearing a forced smile on her face. "I brought you something," she said, handing Addis the bottle of tonic. "I was informed that you were feeling slightly unwell, and I thought this might be of help." Addis, touched by the gesture, gratefully accepted the tonic. "Thank you, Nkechi." Her eyes sparkled with sincerity as she said, "You are incredibly kind." Despite the pain caused by Addis' innocence, Nkechi was steadfast in her resolve. After some time had passed, Addis started taking the tonic as suggested by Nkechi. At first, everything seemed normal. Despite this, subtle changes began to occur. Addis, who is usually brimming with energy and enthusiasm, started to experience unexplainable fatigue. Her radiant smile faded, and she was often complaining about strange dreams that made her restless. Obinna became more concerned about his wife. He observed the dimming of the light in her eyes and felt helpless to intervene. He called for the village healer, who, after examining Addis, could find no physical ailments. He said that her spirit is being drained, and he was puzzled by the symptoms. Nkechi was watching from a distance, feeling a whirlwind of satisfaction and guilt. She had accomplished her goal, but the sight of Addis becoming a shadow of her former self brought her no real solace. Addis' sudden decline caused whispering in the village, and some even suggested that she could be cursed. With tears in her eyes, Addis turned to Obinna while lying weak and pale in bed one night. She whispered, "I don't know what's happening to me." Obinna's heart broke as he held her close. "We will find a way to make you better, my love," he promised, though he felt the weight of uncertainty. Nkechi, back at home, was tormented by her actions. Addis' suffering was haunting her, and she couldn't find peace in her revenge. She came to the realization that her bitterness had driven her down a path she could not easily reverse. The village, which used to be vibrant, now seemed darker, with a heavy air of unspoken fears. Addis' condition deteriorated as the days turned into weeks. The healer and the elders of the village came together to search for a solution. They made the decision to seek the aid of a skilled seer from a nearby village, hoping that she could shed light on the mysterious ailment. The village was given a new sense of hope by the arrival of the seer, Mama Neka. Her wisdom and ability to communicate with the spiritual realm were well known. Respect was demanded when she entered the village. Her eyes, adorned with beads and amulets, seemed to be piercing through to one's very soul while dressed in traditional attire. Mama Neka was escorted to Obina and Adi's home, where a gathering of concerned villagers awaited her. Adi sat on a mat, her condition was visibly worsening. Her bright eyes had become dull and her skin had taken on a pallor that was sickly. Obina sat next to her, clutching her hand, his face etched with anxiety. Mama Neka began her ritual by lighting incense and chanting ancient prayers. The air became thick with the scent of herbs and the sound of her rhythmic incantations. Gently placing her hands on Adi's, she closed her eyes and hoped for answers from the spirit world. Mama Neka revealed a deep sadness when she opened her eyes after what seemed like an eternity. "There is a dark force at work here," she said, her voice heavy with the weight of her discovery. Adi's has been cursed by someone close to her. This curse is stealing her spirit and draining her life force. The villagers gasped in unison. Obina's face lowered, and he looked around the room, frantically trying to identify the culprit. Nkechi, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, experienced a sudden panic. Her conscience was filled with guilt because she had not foreseen this outcome. "We must find the one responsible," Mama Neka continued. The curse cannot be reversed until she looked around the room, her gaze lingering on each face. The villagers began to muffle among themselves due to the palpable tension. That night, Obina and Adi's were left with heavy hearts. Obina struggled to shake off the feeling of betrayal. He asked himself who could have done this to us, his eyes filled with pain. Adi's, who couldn't speak, squeezed his hand and pleaded for answers with her eyes. The village elders arranged a meeting the following day to discuss the seer's findings. They made the decision to inquire about anyone who had been close to Adi's in recent weeks. Nkechi was aware that she had to act quickly as the walls were closing in around her. She made the decision to visit Mama Ife once more, hoping to find a way to remove the curse without revealing her involvement. Her heart pounded with fear and regret as she made her way through the forest at night. The hut owned by Mama Ife seemed more foreboding than ever. Nkechi knocked hesitantly, and the door creaked open to reveal the old woman. Her eyes narrowed as she saw Nkechi. "I need your help," Nkechi pleaded. "The curse has been discovered, and they are searching for the person responsible. I had no intention of it going this far." Mama Ife let out a deep sigh. "I warned you, child. Dark magic always comes with a price." She looked at Nkechi with a mix of pity and sternness. "There is a way to reverse the curse, but it will require a great sacrifice from you." The heart of Nkechi sank. This was unexpected for her. "What kind of sacrifice?" she asked, her voice trembling. "If you willingly give up something precious to you, the curse can be lifted." Mama Ife clarified that repentance must come from a genuine place. Only then will the spirits be appeased. Nkechi knew what she needed to do, but the prospect of making such a sacrifice was dreadful. Her mind was filled with emotions as she returned to the village. Her thoughts were restless throughout the night, as she knew that the time to confess and make amends was approaching. The village gathered in the square the next morning, anticipating Mama Neka's ritual to pinpoint the source of the curse. Nkechi stepped forward with a pounding heart. "It was me," she confessed, her voice breaking. "I cursed Adi's. I was blinded by my pain and jealousy." The crowd erupted in gasps and murmurs. Obina's face was filled with disbelief and anger as he stared at Nkechi. "Why, Nkechi? Why would you do this?" he asked, his voice shaking. Nkechi fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "I was lost in my grief and bitterness. I am so sorry," she cried. "I will do whatever it takes to make this right." The village square fell silent, save for Nkechi's sobs. Obinna stood, a mixture of rage and sorrow etched on his face. He wanted to shout, to lash out, but he saw Adiz, fragile and weak, and knew anger wouldn't save her. Mama Nneka stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. Nkechi, Mama Nneka began, her voice resonating with authority, you have confessed, but confession alone will not lift the curse. Are you willing to make the necessary sacrifice? Nkechi nodded, her resolve hardening. Yes, I am willing. Very well, Mama Nneka said. We must prepare. The village elders moved quickly, gathering what was needed for the ritual. A large circle was drawn in the center of the square, marked with symbols of protection and purification. A fire was lit, its flames reaching toward the sky, casting flickering shadows across the gathered villagers. Mama Nneka guided Nkechi to the center of the circle. You must give up what you hold most dear, Nkechi. It must be a sacrifice from the heart, one that signifies true repentance. Nkechi took a deep breath, her mind racing. She thought of her late husband, Chaik, and the few precious items she had left from their life together. But those were mere possessions. What truly mattered to her was her own freedom and the possibility of finding happiness again. Mama Nneka, Nkechi said, her voice steady despite her fear. I will give up my future, my chance at love and happiness, so that Adiz may live. The villagers gasped, understanding the magnitude of her sacrifice. Mama Nneka nodded, her eyes filled with respect. Very well, Nkechi. Step into the circle. Nkechi obeyed, her heart pounding. Mama Nneka began chanting, her words ancient and powerful. The fire flared brighter, its heat intense. Nkechi felt a strange sensation, a pulling from deep within her soul, as if her very essence was being drawn out. As the ritual continued, Adiz, lying weakly in Obinna's arms, began to stir. Her eyes fluttered open, and color slowly returned to her cheeks. Obinna watched in awe, tears of relief streaming down his face. The energy in the square intensified, the air crackling with power. Nkechi felt a sudden surge of pain, but she did not cry out. She focused on Adiz, watching as her sister-in-law grew stronger with each passing moment. Finally, Mama Nneka's chanting ceased, and the fire died down. Nkechi collapsed to the ground, exhausted but resolute. The curse was broken. Adiz, now fully awake and revitalized, rose to her feet. She looked at Nkechi, understanding the depth of her sacrifice. Thank you, Nkechi, she said softly, her eyes filled with compassion. Obinna approached Nkechi, his emotions conflicted. Nkechi, your actions were unforgivable, but your sacrifice shows you are willing to atone. You will always be family, and we will support you through this. The villagers, too, were moved by Nkechi's repentance. They helped her to her feet and offered words of forgiveness and understanding. Though the road ahead would be difficult, Nkechi felt a glimmer of hope. She had lost her chance at personal happiness, but she had found redemption. In the days that followed, the village worked to heal the rift that had formed. Adiz and Obinna's love grew even stronger, their bond tested and fortified by the ordeal. Nkechi, though bearing the weight of her sacrifice, found solace in the community's support. Life in the village returned to its vibrant self, the shadows of the past fading with each new day. Nkechi devoted herself to helping others, finding purpose in service and gratitude. And while she would always carry the burden of her actions, she knew she had taken the first steps toward true healing. In the end, the village of unity and tradition stood resilient, a testament to the power of forgiveness, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds of family.